Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is New York City Councilmember Joann Ariola. Councilmember, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
On Tuesday night, migrants at Floyd Bennett Field in New York were relocated to James Madison High School on Tuesday night due to severe weather. The students then on Wednesday then transitioned to remote learning at the high school. What's your reaction to this situation?
My reaction is a very big I told you so. When Floyd Bennett Field was first proposed, I told the administration that this was the wrong site, that it easily flooded, inclement events constantly, happen there. No barrier from the wind, no barrier from flooding, no barrier from storms of any kind, and we're in the middle of winter. So I feel that this is going to continue to happen.
That's an interesting point because I talked to an assembly member back in August about this, and they said the same exact thing about Floyd Bennett Field, that it floods very easily. So if these migrants had to be relocated essentially in the middle of the night, if you look at the forecast, there is inclement weather for New York on the horizon here. Is Floyd Bennett Field safe to begin with at all, inclement weather or not?
It is not safe at all, and that has been our contention from the moment that it was proposed. The governor asked for this property from the federal government. The federal government approved it, and the city signed the lease for it. We went through, we spoke with them, we begged them, we pleaded with them, we showed documentation as to why it is unsafe for people to reside on Floyd Bennett Field, and we have initiated a lawsuit for an injunction, which will be heard on January 18th.
I'm curious at who you think specifically is to blame here. You posted this. I want to read it and then get your reaction. Taxpayers are being overburdened. Our students are being inconvenienced. The school that is meant for the students is now going to be packed with just about 2,000 people, and the city does not have a really comprehensive plan. Who is at fault for what you're describing as not a comprehensive plan?
This is on the city. And I've attended many of the hearings and always asked about what the plan was for evacuation, for housing up to 2,000 migrants in a desolate a desolate national park, and I was never given any answers. They said a plan is in place, but I've never seen the plan. And anytime something has happened, the plan was always done like on the spot. So if this were a regular natural disaster that came in and we had to evacuate any of the surrounding areas, we would use Flatbush Avenue and it would go straight to Brooklyn College. Why was Madison High School used? There was no reason for it. And one of the things that we were saying from the very beginning is, in addition to flooding, there is so much wind at Floyd Bennett Field. Today I was there and it was only 35-mile-per-hour winds, and it was pushing us back. 67-mile-per-hour winds would have taken those tents down. We were lucky that it didn't get that high.
Can you talk about your visit to Floyd Bennett Field? What was that like? What was the atmosphere like? Take us right there.
Well, Floyd Bennett Field, just to give you a little background, they see 1 million visitors per year. That is our national park. That's our green space. What's happened now is it's turned into a migrant base camp. When I was there today, I saw a number of migrants coming out with their school children with backpacks on, walking, to the entrance, which is quite a distance from the base camp, and each of them seemed quite downtrodden. And then to learn that over at the school, where that school had to be remote and those 4,000 students were disrupted, not only are they not going to be were not able to go to school today, but they will not be able to have their winter dance this evening because of this. This cannot go on. So when we said Floyd Bennett Field is a bad place for migrants, and because it's unsafe, no one should be there and residing there temporarily or any long term, we were right. No one wants to listen. Even to today, when I spoke with the mayor's office, they said, well, we have nowhere else to put people. And I said, well, you shouldn't put them in places where they are not safe. And Floyd Bennett Field has proven itself to be not safe.
This isn't a winning situation for anyone. You're saying this area is not safe. It's not a winning situation for migrants who were brought there late at night, removed from the high school early in the morning. It's not an ideal situation for parents and students who had to transfer to remote learning today. So I'm curious, what's your message to Mayor Eric Adams specifically?
Two things. He has to stop the influx of migrants into our city. And he also has to put pressure on his legal department to not compromise with the judge regarding the consent decree for right to shelter here in the city. He has to make sure that it is followed to the letter of the law, which is that only homeless New Yorkers need to be given shelter, not migrants who are crossing 20 different countries to get here to our city.
You're very vocal in saying this is not a comprehensive plan. I'm curious, what is a comprehensive plan for you, in your opinion?
It starts at the border. That's where the comprehensive plan starts, at the border. And we need to really take our right to shelter law, consent decree, and follow it. We're not following it. We're providing shelter to non-American citizens when our own homeless, we had 65,000 homeless New Yorkers before one migrant entered our city. Where are they? Where are our veterans that were homeless? Where are our homeless families? We're not seeing them anymore. We're not talking about them anymore. And all we're talking about is migrants. We're talking about $12 billion that it's going to cost us in the next 2 years to withstand this type of an influx of migrants from other countries. We're talking about cutting our essential services because of it. Now, if we have to, for every climate event, relocate anyone, 2,000 people from Floyd Bennett to somewhere else, that costs money. So who's really paying the tab is the taxpayer. And it's unfair to New Yorkers, taxpayers, citizens of this country to have to be inconvenienced and disrupted for a crisis that we're handling at a local level, which should be handled at a federal level.
I brought this up earlier, but there is supposed to be inclement weather coming up soon. So to your knowledge, is there any plan right now for those migrants at Floyd Bennett Field? Are they going back to that high school? Are they going to a different area? What does that look like?
It seems like it's game time decisions that are being made. So I don't have the answer for that. And if I called over to the mayor's office right now, they wouldn't have the answer. But Friday into Saturday or Saturday into Sunday, depending when we get hit with the next band of inclement weather, there's going to be a problem at Floyd Bennett Field. And it's not just the flooding, which they did have a minimal amount of flooding. This time it was the wind. The wind was really dangerous.
And are these tents that are at Floyd Bennett Field, can they sustain this type of wind? Because I was reading reports and migrants there said that the last windy episode, they were afraid these tents were going to come crashing down. What's your take, because you were there?
I saw those videos and the walls were cracking. So today while I was there, I noticed that there were a lot of tractor trailers that were bordering the tents. And I believe that they're using those tractor trailer beds as windbreakers for the facility. However, where the migrant living space is about a football field away from where the migrants' toilets and showers are. So they have to walk at the exterior of the tent to get to the bathroom or to get to the showers. It's really not at all humane.
That doesn't sound humane, and I do want to zoom out a little bit and talk about the more broader theme here. New York City is a sanctuary city. New York State is a sanctuary state. So what's the limiting principles here when it comes to sanctuary guidelines?
So New York City is a right to shelter city, and New York State is a sanctuary city, a sanctuary state. The right to shelter consent law says we need to take care of New York homeless. The broader right to shelter for the entire sanctuary state, for the entire state, well, then why isn't the entire state, shouldering the responsibility of 160 plus thousand migrants that have come into our city? Why are we only seeing a few being bused into other counties like Albany? Why, if it's a sanctuary state, then it should be distributed. Why aren't we seeing more money from the state coming down into New York City? We are absolutely in a crisis financially in our communities. We have migrants now at doorbells, ringing doorbells, asking for money. it is really, when Mayor Adams was at a town hall meeting months ago and said this migrant crisis will destroy this city, he was right.
Do you think that New York should remove the sanctuary status then? What's the answer here? I know you said that it starts at the border, but what's the answer for New York specifically?
I think right now the mayor has a lawsuit in looking to amend our right to shelter consent decree, and the city's lawyers are kind of playing patty cake with the court and with legal aid, trying to compromise on this. We cannot compromise. We have 4,000 new migrants that came in last week. Where are they going? Where will they go? We have no hotel rooms left. We have no shelters left. We're using our national park, and we're starting to see a major uptick in gang-like activity in our stores and criminal activity within the shelters.
New York City has dealt with this migrant crisis for months now. I was talking to one of your colleagues over the summer. So what do you think is missing from the national conversation when it comes to New York and migrants?
I think the national conversation should be that this is a national issue. Never before has a crisis of this degree, of this magnitude, ever been handled by a locality. And yet, there's nothing coming from Washington. And that's from both sides of the aisle. But the Republicans in Washington want to see more border control, and the Democrats don't see the need for it. So, and our president is not outspoken at all about it. And we've received no financial reimbursement from the federal government, and the state has given a minimal amount of money.
I just talked to a member of Congress yesterday from Florida who visited the border last week, and she's a Republican. She went with the House Republicans. She said this has reached crisis levels. I talked to her last year too. She said that then. I've talked to Democrats too in Congress. They've said this reaches a crisis level, but obviously the solutions here, they're not seeing eye to eye. So where do you think both Democrats and Republicans can sit down and agree? Where do you think that compromise will come?
I don't know, because our nation is really, it's crumbling under this migrant crisis, because what the border states have been realizing for so many years is now what we're realizing. And they're not sanctuary states. So they have every right to put migrants on buses and send them to Chicago, to New York City. And they're doing that in record numbers. So, I mean, I've been to Washington, we've testified before multiple committees. We want this city to survive, but all I'm seeing is that the federal government, and when I say federal government, I mean our president, has really just kind of turned his face away from what's happening here. And Congress and the Senate are arguing back and forth whether, the Republicans are called MAGA Republicans and the Democrats in turn are called, Biden's poor policy at the border. So when you're just adversarial like that, you're never going to get anything done. And that's where we're at.
This is a hypothetical, but let's say you had President Biden sitting down right in front of you now for a meeting about this. What would you tell him about the migrant crisis in New York City right now?
I would tell him that it's destroying New York City. It's destroying the economy of New York City. And the economy of New York City really, it was one of the largest tax bases for this entire country and for the federal government. And he's losing that. People are leaving. People are voting with their feet. They're tired of what's going on here. They're tired of the crime. They're tired of the migrant crisis. They're tired of their schools, having less. What happened at James Madison, was just terrible. 4,000 students, and they had to go on remote today. Why? The inconvenience, because a place where we knew would never work, it's unsafe, was used as a migrant base camp. I think I would tell him, please listen to the constituents of this country, not the politicians, the constituents, because we're the ones that are really living it.
I'm really concerned about what's next. I know you said that you weren't sure what's next for these migrants at Floyd Bennett Field, especially over the weekend as we're looking at the forecast. But what is next for this crisis? Because it doesn't seem like there is a plan right now.
It's very difficult to say because the borders are wide open. So if we're receiving 4,000 migrants per week, I mean, at some point, people are going to see people living right on their front lawns.
Do you think
That's what's going to happen.
is that a reality that would happen soon?
Absolutely. That is a reality that we're going to see very soon because we have nowhere else to put the migrants. Therefore, they're going to be setting up tents in our parks. And honestly, there have been areas and states that are sanctuary states that have had migrants just setting up and squatting on people's front lawns. And so it's happening in other places. It will happen here.
Councilmember, I really appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as the situation develops, I hope you come back on.
I would love to come back on and continue the conversation. Thank you.